Chapter 1. Is sleep a fond memory? Without a doubt, the most difficult thing for a new parent is the lack of sleep. Instead of enjoying the first few months and years you spend with your new bundle of joy, you're living in a fog of yawns and doubts, causing you to second-guess yourself and wonder if you're doing something wrong. Of course, every baby cries at night, every baby wakes up at night, and not many babies actually sleep through the night regularly. Whilst you should be realistic about this, you should also be open to the fact that you can make changes to improve the situation and help you to regain some of your own health and well-being at the same time. All babies wake up several times per night, and it has nothing to do with your parenting ability. The No-Cry Sleep Solution covers 10 steps which allow you to create a bespoke sleep plan for your baby. Elizabeth Pantley is a strong believer in the idea that sleep should be a relaxing and pleasant state, albeit necessary, and not one that a child should dislike or fear. By creating a personalized sleeping plan, you can ensure that mindset is instilled from the get-go. Pantley was in the same situation as you. A mother of 4 children, with all 4 she searched for answers to the sleeping challenge. She found there are 2 main taught routes: cry it out or live with it and be there all the time on demand. She didn't like either solution, so she looked for answers elsewhere. Having 4 unique children has afforded me the insight that, whilst it is possible for a very young baby to sleep all night, it is certainly the exception. Elizabeth Pantley. Pantley had a group of test mommies check out the information she gives in the book. The results are very encouraging. By day 10, 42% of babies were sleeping through the night. And by day 60, 90% were at that same point. However, it's vital to understand that it takes time, and you need to persevere and stick with it. Did you know? On average, the parent of a newborn child waves goodbye to around 109 minutes of sleep every night in the first year of their child's life. Chapter 2. 10 Steps to Regular Sleep for You and Your Baby. Several of the steps involve repetition and analysis simply because there is no one-size-fits-all answer, and you need to go down a trial-and-error road to find the right answer for both you and your baby. Your baby is unique, and there is no one-size-fits-all answer to sleeping problems. It's a case of trial and error. The 10 steps within the book are: conduct a safety check. Understand the basic facts about sleeping. Log your baby's current sleeping patterns. Learn about different sleeping solutions and identify the ones you want to try. Create a plan. Follow your bespoke plan for 10 days. Log the 10 days to identify patterns. Review the previous 10 days and make changes if needed. Follow your plan for another 10 days. Review once more and make any other changes. After every 10 days, you need to take stock of your log and work out whether new changes need to be made. Then, make the changes and follow them for another 10 days. A night or 2 isn't long enough to identify whether or not your changes are working, but after 10 days, a new routine has had enough time to be established in terms of whether it's going to work for you or not. Whenever you make a change to your baby's sleeping routine, give it 10 days before you review it and decide if further changes are required. Chapter 3. Your baby's safety is more important than anything. It goes without saying that your baby's safety is the most important thing, and there are a few safety guidelines you need to be familiar with when it comes to sleeping. Be sure to discuss with your doctor if you're not sure about anything or if you're concerned about any aspects of putting your baby down to sleep. SIDS, Sudden Infant Death Syndrome, is a huge concern for all parents. This is the unexplained death of a child under 1 year of age, and this usually happens during sleep. Most of the time, the child is healthy. Despite many studies, researchers still haven't come up with a solid reason why SIDS occurs, and for that reason, it's about reducing risk. There is no solid reason for SIDS to occur, therefore, you must reduce risk and be safe at all times. Whilst babies prefer to sleep on their tummy, it's considered unsafe. It's thought to be far safer to put your baby to sleep on their back and encourage it as much as you can. You can do this by letting your baby have a nap in a stroller, infant seat, or a car seat. Once your baby is awake and alert, you can have tummy time to encourage the development of major muscle groups and awareness. Allowing a baby to sleep on their tummy is considered unsafe. Therefore, put your baby down to sleep on their back. It's important to conduct a general safety check of your baby's sleeping environment. Make sure that anything you have in your child's crib meets safety standards and that the mattress fits tightly to the crib without any gaps. You should avoid stuffed toys or pillows in the crib with your baby and avoid using blankets over or under your baby. Also, make sure that your child is dressed in sleeping clothes that fit and that aren't oversized. Ensure that all equipment within your baby's sleeping environment meets stringent safety standards. Of course, ensure that there is a working sleep detector in the room and keep lamps and night lights away from the bed. In terms of a comfortable sleeping temperature, the general recommendation is between 64 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Pantley recognizes that many parents like to co-sleep, but the general safety advice is not to do this. No matter how tired you are, no matter how tempting the situation seems, please be sure that you put your baby's safety above all else. Elizabeth Pantley. Did you know? More than 2,000 babies die of SIDS in the USA every year. Therefore, ensuring a safe sleeping environment is vital. Chapter 4. Learning about sleep helps you tackle the problem. It's not possible to effectively deal with a problem if you don't understand the background to it. Therefore, understanding why we need to sleep and how the body controls it will help you to work out the amount of sleep that your baby needs and how to tackle sleeping problems. Adults have a biological clock, or circadian rhythm, which regulates sleep and allows you to recognize day and night. This means that there are natural times for you to be awake and natural times for you to be asleep. This rhythm can easily be thrown into chaos for a short while, e.g., long-haul travel and jet lag, but it tends to right itself over time. However, a baby isn't born with this circadian rhythm, and it needs to be established over time. The circadian rhythm regulates your sleeping and waking hours and is sometimes called your biological clock. A baby is not born with this rhythm, it needs to be developed. This means that in the early months and years of your baby's life, your circadian rhythm is out of whack with their sleeping patterns. Over time, your baby's naps and nighttime sleep eventually develop their own circadian rhythm, but this doesn't tend to mature until around 6 to 9 months of age and doesn't really kick in at all until around 4 to 5 months of age. A baby's circadian rhythm isn't established until around 9 months of age at least. While all babies are different, the average sleep cycle is becoming tired and falling asleep, a period of light sleep, falling into a deep sleep lasting for around an hour, waking up for a brief amount of time, falling into a deep sleep for around 1 to 2 hours, waking up briefly once more, dreaming sleep, REM, waking up briefly, sleeping lightly, waking up briefly, dreaming sleep, REM, waking up briefly, sleeping lightly, awake for a longer period. From that cycle, you can see where the damage is done, the brief amounts of time your baby is waking up. These brief times can easily turn into longer periods if you're not careful with your baby's sleeping environment or you don't respond to what they want or need promptly. In addition, you may not find it easy to fall back to sleep after your baby has woken up for that short amount of time, meaning that you just manage to nod off before they wake up once more. Did you know the REM, rapid eye movement, sleep phase is vital for brain development? Chapter 5. The Importance of Sleep Cues. Pantley mentions that the best way to try and encourage your baby to sleep is to recognize and set up sleeping cues. This is a set of actions you conduct and an environment you create, which helps your baby to recognize when it's time to fall asleep. William C. Dement, MD, PhD, is considered to be the world's expert on sleep, having set up the world's first Center for Sleep Disorders at Stanford University. He believes that sleep cues are the single best strategy for improving your child's sleep and getting them into a routine which they stick to. Sleeping cues are vital in helping your child to recognize when it's time to sleep. Between the ages of 5 months up to 5 years, the cues which you subject your child to become the most important factor in your child's sleeping patterns. As a result, you need to be mindful of what your child is doing before they sleep, the time you encourage them to go to bed, the environment they're in, and how relaxed or otherwise they are. By doing this, you help them to connect the dots and draw an association with the reality that it's time to go to sleep. By putting your newborn baby down to sleep in a way which means their needs have been met, increases the chances of them falling asleep quickly and staying asleep until morning. However, when we say a baby slept through the night, that actually means that they slept for 5 hours. As you can imagine, most adults don't consider 5 hours sleep to be a full night. Sleeping through for this amount of time as a newborn is also quite rare. Sleeping through the night for a newborn is considered a stretch of 5 hours, a rarity. It's important to remember that a newborn baby has a small stomach, and because they're only consuming liquids, this digests pretty quickly. You'll need to feed your baby at least every 2 to 4 hours, and some babies will need more. Some babies fall asleep whilst they're feeding, but it's important not to allow this to become the norm. By doing that, you're helping your baby to assume that the only way they can fall asleep is by feeding on the breast, bottle, or a pacifier. Pantley advises that when you see they're becoming sleepy, you move the feeding aid, whatever that might be, away from them and wait. If they fuss that they want more, move it back to them and then move it away again. Repeat this until they fall asleep. Over time, this will help them to fall asleep on their own without the need to suck. Help your baby understand they can fall asleep without feeding by moving the feeding aid, breast or bottle, away before they fall asleep. It's also very tempting to let your baby fall asleep in your arms. Your child will do this every time you let them because they feel comfortable and safe in your arms, but they are also going to connect an association to sleep with your arms if you allow this to happen all the time. When your child looks like they're becoming sleepy, put them down to sleep in their crib, avoiding the temptation to let them lay in your arms every time. If you fail to do this, every time your baby wants to sleep, they're going to cry until you pick them up. Big mistake. Did you know? For many babies, fisted hands can be a sign of hunger, whilst relaxed hands after or during feeding show that they're full. Chapter 6. Be on the lookout for your baby's unique sleeping signals. Your baby will give you signals that they're sleepy, but you need to pay attention to these and recognize them at the right time. It's important to be realistic and realize that your baby is not going to start sleeping for long periods at night straight away, but if you stick with it, you will encourage them to do so and fall into a pattern. By recognizing cues that your baby is starting to feel sleepy, you can put them down to bed. A few common sleepy signals include slowing in movement, not being as interested in toys or people, looking glazed over, being a little fussy, rubbing their eyes, or regular yawning. Cues that your baby is getting sleepy include slowing movements, losing interest, glazing over, rubbing their eyes, or yawning. When your baby wakes up in the night, you should also listen carefully to the noises they're making. Again, you'll come to recognize your baby's unique noises. For some, sucking noises or sniffling can simply mean they're sleeping, and in that case, you should let them sleep. However, if you recognize signs that they're about to wake up, make sure that you tend to their needs quickly, and as a result, they'll stay sleepy and fall back to sleep far easier than if you allow them to fully wake up. If your baby shows signs of waking up in the night, make sure you tend to them quickly to encourage them to fall back to sleep easier. In terms of naps, you shouldn't let your newborn baby nap for too long, as it's easily going to affect their nighttime sleep and mean that you're in for a disrupted night. Don't let your newborn take a nap for too long. If they're sleeping for too long, they're going to get day and night mixed up. You are aiming for short daytime naps and long nighttime sleep. Did you know? Naps too close to bedtime can totally disrupt nighttime sleep. For a newborn, early evening is as late as a nap should be. Chapter 7. The importance of understanding that your baby is unique. As your child becomes a little older, 4 months and upwards, their sleeping pattern will start to change. You must recognize your child as a unique person in their own right, and as a result, their sleeping pattern is not going to be the same as your friend's child. You should also ask yourself whether their sleeping pattern is a real problem or whether it's simply a problem in your own mind as you're comparing them to someone else. Comparing your child's sleeping pattern to another child's is useless. Every child is unique. Your child's sleeping pattern is only a problem if it's not enough or if it's affecting your own lifestyle and health. Many parents listen too much to what other people say, and as a result, this can lead them to think there is a real problem at hand. Again, every child is unique, and just because your friend's child sleeps for X number of hours in the afternoon and then sleeps for most of the night, doesn't mean that there is anything wrong with your child if they don't do the same thing. Pantley also acknowledges that her 4 children were all totally unique to one another, which means you can't compare one child against the other in the same family either. Chapter 8. Establish a pre-bedtime routine. What you do before bedtime is extremely important in helping to set a routine and precedent for sleep to occur. For starters, make sure that they're not hungry and take a look at what they're eating before bedtime. Some foods are better than others, and anything too heavy may cause them to have a disrupted night's sleep. It goes without saying that you should avoid sugar before bedtime. A few good foods in the couple of hours before sleep are whole grain cereals, brown rice, yogurt, cheese, fruit, and oatmeal, assuming your child is eating solids. Look at what your child is eating before bedtime. Make sure they're not hungry, but check that they're eating the right pre-sleep foods. You should also make sure that your child's sleeping environment is comfortable and dress them according to the weather. Make sure they're not too hot and they're not too cold. Once the basics are covered, you can then work on a pre-bedtime routine which prepares them for sleep. A few useful sleep cues include a warm bath, a massage, reading a story, playing slow music, rocking, feeding, or even going for a walk. Put simply, the hour before you want your child to sleep should be quiet and peaceful, with dim lighting in the room. Setting a pre-bedtime routine helps to trigger the idea of sleep in your child's mind. The routine you set needs to be followed exactly every single night. This will ensure that the routine becomes second nature, and it prompts your child that it's time to fall asleep. As a result, they will naturally become tired. This advice is the same for naps, too. Make sure that naps are at the same time every day and that you follow the same routine beforehand. This can also help you to reduce the stress in your own life and have a routine which allows you to have a little me time. I find that most parents who do not have a formal bedtime routine typically spend that last hour before bed fighting with their children about going to bed. Elizabeth Pantley. Did you know? Cherries are a natural source of melatonin, which helps you relax and could aid sleep. If your child is old enough, this could be a useful pre-bedtime snack. Chapter 9. What time is bedtime? Many parents aren't sure what time their children's bedtime should be. Again, every child is unique, and this depends upon you, but most children are ready to sleep around 6:30 to 7 o'clock p.m. Most children are ready to sleep by 7 p.m. Some parents are tempted to let their child go to bed a little later, assuming that this will help them to sleep a little longer, but it is usually counterproductive. In this case, the child becomes overtired, and it can be harder for them to get to sleep. This can also leave them sleep-deprived. Putting your child to bed a little earlier isn't an issue in terms of them waking up at the crack of dawn, as most babies will sleep longer when they have an earlier bedtime. By setting a routine throughout the daytime, e.g., having feeds at the same time every day, playtime at the same time, going for a walk at the same time, you'll help your child's circadian rhythm establish, and sleep will become far less of an issue over a shorter amount of time. Having a regular routine during the day, e.g., doing things at the same time and in the same order, will help to establish your child's biological clock. Your child should have regular naps throughout the day. However, do not let them nap for too long, and don't allow the last nap of the day to be too close to bedtime. The number of naps your child should have and how long for depends upon their age, but again, this is a guideline only, as every child is different. On average, a 4-month-old baby should have 3 naps every day, and the total amount of time they spend napping should be between 4 to 6 hours. Every young child needs naps, but the number and duration depend upon their age. As your child grows, their need to nap should become less, so an average 9-month-old baby should have 2 naps per day, and that should total around 2.5 to 4 hours of napping time. As before, napping too late in the day is a recipe for broken sleep at night and trouble putting your baby down. If your baby is at an age where they're taking 3 naps per day, good recommended times for naps are mid-morning, early in the afternoon, and early in the evening. If your baby is taking 2 naps, mid-morning and early afternoon are good times, and if they only have 1 nap per day, make it in the early afternoon. When they start to show you signs of tiredness via their unique cues, put them down for their nap. Do not allow your baby to nap too close to nap time, as this will cause their nighttime sleep to be affected. Conclusion. Understanding your child's sleep cues and setting a routine are both vital steps towards establishing a sleeping pattern that suits both you and your child. It's important to make changes slowly and give it 10 days to ensure they're working or to make further changes after that. Elizabeth Pantley encourages you to log everything related to your baby's sleep. By doing this, you can identify where changes might need to be made. Introducing one change at a time is important, otherwise you risk confusing your baby completely and therefore causing more harm than good to their sleeping situation. Whilst most parents will wave goodbye to good quality sleep for a few months after their baby is born, it doesn't have to be the case for long. You will regain your sleep, and if you follow the advice in the no-cry sleep solution, that could be sooner rather than later. Try this. 1. Keep a log of your baby's sleeping patterns, including the environment when they sleep and wake up, e.g., noise, light, etc. 2. Think carefully about your child's bedtime and set a standard time which isn't too early or too late. 3. Plan out your new pre-bedtime routine before you set the wheels in motion.